Hello everyone and welcome back to the Crafty Yellow Camper. Today we're going to be making a stable door card with the Snowflake Wishes stamp set. In fact, I'm using quite a lot of these things out of the suite Snowflake Splendour. So I've used the designer series paper, I've used the inks, the stamps obviously, and the dies. Some of the balmy blue glimmer paper, and I've used the embossing folder that's also in the suite. So I absolutely love this balmy blue glimmer paper. It's really pretty, really shiny, and since we're missing some of our other glimmer papers this year, it's actually quite nice to have a new colour. Okay, so I just want to say thank you to Jan B, who you'll find on YouTube. She's an absolutely inspirational card maker, fellow Stampin' Up demonstrator, and she showcased the stable door card front, which is, I must admit, one that I hadn't seen before. She's a different stamp set, but hers was lovely. So I'm going to show you how to cut your card base first. So I'm just going to pop this one to one side and let's get started. So I'm bringing in my stamping trimmer. Now I've gone ahead and prepared some of this to try and keep the video a little bit short for you. So I'll run through the sizes of things as we go, so you can always rewind and rewatch. But if there's anything that I haven't made clear and you've got a query about, please comment underneath my YouTube video, or on my Facebook page or Instagram, all of which are the Crafty Yellow Camper. Okay, so I've started off with a piece of Highland Heather cardstock, and I have cut it in half lengthways. So on a UK sheet, that's cut at 10.5 centimetres, and I have scored and folded it in half to give us that size. So it's a standard C6 card size. Okay, so following Jan's instructions, which were very clear, so if mine aren't, go and have a look at her YouTube video. What we need to do is we need to cut down part of the front of the card in order to make this stable flap. Let me see better if I show you inside. Okay, so what we're going to do is I want to end up with a flap that is 6 centimetres in depth at the bottom of my card, and because this measures 10.5 centimetres, I know that I need to cut off 4.5. So is that right? Let me just consult my instructions, because I've changed. No, sorry, we're going to cut 5.5 centimetres off. I've changed my instructions very slightly from Jan's. So we're going to cut 5.5 centimetres off. And the easiest way to do that, if you've got a trimmer like mine with a slidey blade, is to line up the markers on your blade. Now this is the Stampin' Up one. So it has, I'll just slide that up, hopefully you can see, it has little grooves here where my thumbs are. So I'm going to start at the crease of the card and I'm going to go up to the top, and then I want to cut away the crease. Now Jan did this on her trimmer by lining up the card with one of the lines and making sure that the actual trimmer blade was just the other side of the score line. So I'm going to give that a go. So we're going to go up. And please excuse me if you end up with my head in shot, and we just need to go to where we have cut. I'm just going to bring a pair of scissors in there just so I can snip that last bit so it doesn't rip. Okay, so we don't need this bit anymore, so you can pop that away to one side and maybe use that for something else. So that's all our trimming at the moment for the actual card base. So let's move the trimmer out of the way, and then I've already gone ahead and cut a few more pieces. Just going to move that up so you can see properly. Okay, so I'm using a piece of the designer series paper from the Snowflake Splendour suite. This is actually one of the papers that's on offer for the month of October at a reduced price. So if you like this paper like I do, it's a good time to stock up. And I've cut that to fit the back of the card, but I've cut it slightly longer than I need it to, and you'll see why in a minute. So the piece of designer series paper is 14.3 centimetres by 6 centimetres. Now you can use either side. If you were going to use a I don't know, a pool party base or a Coastal Cabana base, that side would be really nice. But since we're using Highland Heather, I'm going to have the purple side shown. So I'm just going in with a little bit of wet glue. Oh, I got a gungy bit on there. Just going to get that off. Stick that to my trouser leg until later. Never craft in good trousers. I always craft in denim. There we go. So there's the glue on our paper. Please forgive me if I disappear in and out of shot, but in order to line things up and be able to see around the camera, I sometimes have to slide things down. So we're just going to stick that on there, and I've cut it so that we've got a little bit of a mat of the Highland Heather. It's such a pretty piece of paper. And then I've also gone ahead and cut a piece of Whisper White, and this is 14.3 again, but this time it needs to overlap your DSP so you get a seamless join, and it is let's have a look, 14.3 by 5 this time. Now on Jan's, she did mention about lining up the two edges. I'm not that neat, so I always cover mine up. But before we stamp that, before we stick that in, we're going to stamp it. So I'm using the little sort of group of snowflakes from the stamp set, and I'm going to go in with some pool party. I'll move my details out of the way. You can see that this piece of paper that I've chosen has got sort of a bit of a mix of the Highland Heather, the Coastal Cabana and the pool party, so I thought it'd be nice to reflect that. So I'm just going to randomly stamp the snowflakes over my piece of white cardstock, and you can stamp off the edges. Okay, that wasn't very random, was it? So let's just add a few more in there. That's that. That's just to give that a little bit of a background. And then I'm going to stamp my greeting, because as we all know, cardstock has two sides. Once you stack it down, you've only got one side. So it's always a good idea to do it before you stick it down. Then if you mess it up, you can turn it over so you haven't wasted your cardstock. Okay, so I'm going to use the sentiment Snowflake Wishes for a Merry Christmas, and I'm going to stamp that hopefully fairly level. There we go. I'm not very good at getting things straight, and it was quite nice to hear that Jan isn't either, because she's such a consummate card maker. Her videos are so professional. It was quite nice to hear that she sometimes gets things on the wonk as well. So okay, we're just going to put some wet glue on that. And again, the reason I'm using wet glue is to give me a little bit of wiggle room. If you prefer, you could use double-sided tape, but I like to have a little bit of room to wiggle it. Okay, so we're going to stick this lined up with our DSP, and again showing a little bit of the Highland Heather at the bottom, and you'll notice as I've slid that on that I've got a little bit of glue shown there. Don't try and wipe it off with your finger, because you'll spread it out. What I'll do is I'll leave that, and then once that's dry, I'll get my glue rubber in on it. Now, unfortunately, Stampin' Up! Don't sell them anymore. This is a glue rubber for those of you that didn't already know what it was. Looks really tatty and awful, but it does the job. But I have seen these on other crafting sites. So they are available, just not from us anymore, sadly. Okay, so that's that. So I'm just going to leave that to dry. So that's our inside. We've got our piece of DSP, and we've got our stamped Whisper White panel with our greeting on. And there is room in there to write to whoever and from. But if you've got a big family and lots of names, you can always do it on the back. Okay, so what I've then gone ahead and done is I have already stamped and cut out some snowflakes, just purely because you don't want to see me using a die cutting machine. Okay, so what I've done is I've used Balmy Blue, and I've cut two of these snowflakes out, which is that one in the set. And then with the Highland Heather, I've cut one of these out. Now, I've stamped them and cut them with the dies that match. I would suggest, if you can, if you love this set as much as I do, to get the dies, because there are some other dies in there that don't go with the stamps and can do other things for you, but equally that is going to be a nightmare to fussy cut. Okay, unless of course you love fussy cutting, in which case go for it, but I don't have that much time to spare, I'm afraid. So I've then used, this is what I meant when I said some of the other dies. So these dies don't coordinate with the stamps in the set, but they cut their own snowflakes, if you understand what I mean. So I've cut these out of the balmy blue glimmer paper, and using those smaller stamps is a good way of getting your glimmer paper to go a long way. Now, on the first card I showed you, I've embossed the actual stable door with the Snowflake embossing folder, which also is in this suite. It's called Winter Snow Embossing Folder, and it's one of the new embossing folders to go with our new Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. So they are thinner than some of our textured ones that we have had. So I don't have the new machine. My Big Shot is in working order, and at the moment I'd rather spend my money on other things in the catalogues and buying a new die cutting machine. If you've got that, that's fine. If you haven't and you're using the Big Shot with the multi-purpose platform, like I do, then you need tab 1 open and both your plates, and then that will go through fine. Okay, so I'm just going to move that out of the way. So I haven't embossed this one on here because I wanted to do something a little bit different, and it's something that I used to do a lot and I haven't done it for a while. So I'm just, may come out all right, may not, we'll see. So I'm just going to get a Versamark ink pad, and I have a selection of Versamark ink pads, and I'm going to go for that one. Now, again, we sell basic Versamark, which is this one, and Versamark is a tacky ink. Now, most people, please excuse the state of my Versamark, that is very well used and very well loved, and we do sell a re-inker, so you don't need to buy a new pad when yours looks like that. You can just re-ink it. So we do sell the basic one, but also we have these champagne, or I have these champagne and frost Versamark pads, which I had before we sold the Versamark. So this is the frost one, and this is the champagne one, and they are sparkly. They're called a Dazzle watermark stamp. As I said before, mainly we use Versamark to heat emboss, and we use it as a tacky glue, but you can also use it as a watermark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the frost one, and I am going to pick out a slightly bigger collection of stamps. Here we are. So there are, in this stamp set, there are 2 stamps that have more than one snowflake on. So we've already used the smaller one, which was this one, to give a background to our sentiment strip, and this is the slightly larger one. So this is the one that I'm going to use now, and what I'm going to do is just ink it up on my Versamark pad. It's still tacky like the normal one is, and I'm going to stamp it onto my cardstock. Now you can do this with the normal one. You could obviously heat emboss the snowflakes on the front of this, but what I wanted was a sort of a watermark effect. Okay, and you can see that that stands out because it's basically shiny on the cardstock. So it's a good way of adding some texture without adding any anything else. It's just ink, but you get that slightly shimmery look on there, and I'm going to leave it like that because I actually like that sort of almost wave of Versamark. Now what we're going to do is attach our snowflakes to the front. So this is part where you have to watch what you're doing with your glue. So what I'm going to do is open up my card again and lay it flat. So the snowflakes are going to be attached across the top of the stable door. So what you need to do is pay attention to where you actually need to put glue, because if you put glue in the wrong place, you'll stick your card together. And also, if you're using Tombow multi-purpose glue, it stays tacky even once it's dry. So I'm going to stick my first one on there like that, and then I'm going to come back in. Please excuse my arm going across the screen. I use a little jam jar, you know, one of these one portion ones that you sometimes get in hotels or you get with an afternoon tea, and it's really good for keeping my Tombow upside down, so the glue is always at the fine point, which is where I tend to use it most. So on this one I've put 3 little blobs, and what I'm going to do is overlap that one there. Okay, try not to put too much or it'll squidge out, and again you'll be attacking it with a glue rubber. And then on this one we're just going to have those bottom 2 again, I think, and you really don't need a lot of glue, otherwise it will squidge out. That's where I love this Tombow multi-purpose glue. Right, so we're just going to overlap that one there, and actually, to be fair, I could have put a little bit of glue under that end one, so we're just going to lift that up carefully and just add a little tinsy bit of glue on there. Now we're going to come in with our sparkly ones. So when you're layering up things like this, the general rule is to have odd numbers. So you want a 1 or a 3 or a 5 or a 7. Unless you're doing something that you want to look completely symmetrical, then that is the general rule of thumb, to get a sort of well covered but not overcrowded look. Okay, so I'm going to go back in with the shiny ones. These are the ones with the glimmer paper. Now this isn't so easy to get to stick down as Whisper White, so you might have to put a little bit more glue on, but be careful not to squidge it out. Once it catches, it'll be fine. And then I'm going to put the little dinky one into that space there. So I'm just basically filling in the gaps. So I've put my bigger 3 at the back and then filled in with my 2 shiny ones. Right, so that's that. So let's move my glue out of the way. And then part of the suite as well are these gems, blue adhesive back gems. Now you can see if I turn that over, you might be able to see better. They are different colours. So these are more of an icy blue, and these are sort of more of a darker blue. So what I'm going to do is just grab my pokey tool, end of my lift up tool, and I'm going for the more sort of icy blue ones. I'm just going to pop one in the middle. They are in different sizes, but they don't go as small as our normal diamond gems. So there's 2 sizes on this sheet. There are the bigger ones, and then there are the smaller ones. So I've just popped one of each of those on to the bigger blue snowflakes, and then I'm just going back in with our basic rhinestones just to put one into the middle of that purple one. There, you can't have Christmas without a little bit of shimmer, can you? So that's our card complete, and all I need to do is go back. Obviously you can see that that glue has dried now, so I'll be able to go back with a glue rubber in a little while. So there we go. So there's our card. I hope you like it, and I'll see you again soon for another card. Happy stamping. Bye for now.